Have you ever wondered why we offer food to the departed souls even though they cannot literally eat food? Ghosts and spirits do not need food to survive like us humans. Yet, many traditions require food offerings to be made to keep the souls of the departed happy. In many cultures, food is offered to the departed on death anniversaries or on special occasions that carry sentimental value. Some keep food offerings every single day. Did you know if a ghost or a spirit touches freshly made food, it goes bad instantly and smells awful? Hard to believe. Let me tell you a story. An incident that happened many years ago, and my family members witnessed it along with many others who were present at a gathering after a funeral to honor the departed. This is a story about an elderly couple who lived in a house that stood between acres of coffee plantations. They had 2 daughters and a son. The couple were not just strict with their children, but they were also less affectionate towards them. The elderly man spent most of his time yelling and punishing his children, and his wife always stood by him and supported his behavior without worrying about how traumatic it was for the kids. Many years passed and children grew up and moved out. All 3 of them got married and they were living a good family life with their spouses and kids. The elderly couple were growing old and needed to be looked after. So the eldest daughter took them in to live with her and took really good care of them, despite their aggressive attitude. The eldest daughter's husband was not very happy having the elderly couple stay with them for too long, as they had started showing the same angry behavior with their grandchildren, and it was affecting them in a very bad way. There were arguments all day long and unpleasant exchange of words. That house had turned into a living hell. After going through many stressful days, son-in-law made up his mind and told the elderly couple that they couldn't live with them anymore, but he is happy to make arrangements for them elsewhere along with someone to take care of them. The couple, who were financially not dependent on anyone, refused the offer and they went back to their estate. Now that they were back home and had too much time on their hands, they started paying visits to see their friends and family members one at a time, like they were going on a holiday. Everywhere they went and every house they visited, they only ended up having problems with families they met. Of course, everybody was concerned about their age, but somehow the couple always made it unpleasant and unbearable for others. One of the houses they visited then was my grandmother's. My mum and her siblings were in their late 20s, and that elderly man was my grandmother's distant cousin. My mom recalls having them over for a few days. She says the couple were fussy about food and they would throw tantrums all the time. They would forget that they are guests in the house and they would treat the hosts as servants. They had a reputation of being difficult. My grandmother, who couldn't take it anymore, politely asked them to leave. A few weeks later, they got the news that the elderly man had passed away. His wife, who should be devastated, showed no sign of pain or grief. No one saw her cry. When the children asked her, she said her husband was still around and never left. Everyone assumed that she was in a state of shock. After completing the funeral ritual in the morning, children had arranged a gathering at their estate house to honor and mourn him. Very few people were invited, that included close relatives and friends. Children had gone out of their way to make sure everything was arranged perfectly, along with a massive buffet which had all of his favorite dishes. After being criticized over and over for almost everything, children were used to going an extra mile trying to please their parents. The children were sad losing their father, but their mom, who was seated at one of the tables, looked absolutely fine, like it was just another day. After a while, a lunch was served and one batch of people had already taken their food and another one was just about to serve themselves. Everything looked okay when one of the cooks came running to the eldest daughter and told her that all the food they had prepared has gone bad and it's such a mess. The daughter went to check and to her surprise, She found that all the food that was served has gone bad, looks weird, and smells terrible. My grandmother, my mum, and her siblings were present that day who witnessed all this. It was impossible and unbelievable that freshly cooked food, which was perfectly fine minutes ago, was now all bad. And you know what's more weird? The food that was taken by the first batch of people was perfectly fine. That had not gone bad. His wife, who was seated at one of the tables, started laughing so loud that she had everybody's attention. She said her husband was responsible for this, and he says that he does not want any food offering or rituals to be carried out to help him move on to the other side. He says that he intends to stay right here where he belongs. Having said that, with a big smile, she went back inside the house. People were horrified. No one said anything or reacted awkwardly. Soon after, they all left one by one. My grandmother and my mum were the last ones to leave. My mum told me that the children went through another traumatic phase for a very long time as they were continuously disturbed by a presence. They carried out many rituals to keep the negative energy away from them and their families, but it helped only to an extent. After another year, the old lady also passed away. Apparently, everything went back to normal and things were now very quiet. Everyone assumed that the elderly couple moved on to the other side as they had each other's company now. We too have had similar incidents in our ancestral house. Food going bad, not one but all of them at the same time. It's a known fact that some ghosts can touch certain objects even though they don't have a physical form. But it is unclear to me how they taste food that is offered or spoil the food by just touching them when they're unhappy.